I, I encourage you to participate by chat if you're not wanting your face or a voice recorded, but we always encourage interaction, so feel free to keep asking questions in chat. I am happy to introduce the presentation titled Make Humanized Your Modality, and this is presented by Brett Christie with O'Donnell Learn, and I am going to hand it off to Brett.
Great, thank you so much, and good morning, everybody. I was doing a quick time zone pause here. I'm from the West Coast, but today I'm in Dallas for the OLC conference as well, so kind of doing both conferences. But thrilled to be here with you today. And I guess couple things to pause before I go into the title. I will give you the URL to the deck at the end, so don't feel if I go too quickly on anything that you've missed out. And also embedded throughout the session, I have URLs, links within the slides to the resources that I'm sharing, because there are a lot of open access, Creative Commons licensed resources for you. So avail yourselves to those and feel free to adapt and adopt, and we'll talk about that along the way. As far as today's topic, and I'll do my introduction in a second, but I just want to talk about the topic. So given what we've been going through for the last couple of years and what I've been observing, and where I've seen the conversation lately, where there's a lot of that tension or speculation or debate about where we're going forward and what's going to be the modality, there's still the conversation about whether or not online can be a good form of education. And so I watch that, and I know the research, and I know that it can be as good or better when done well. And I know how bad that face-to-face can be. And so there's that debate happening again because of the situation that we're in, and how we're going forward and seeing where things land. And to me, it's all about making sure that your modality is about being humanized, that your courses are humanized, because if your courses aren't humanized, the modality, the technology doesn't matter very much. You're not going to have a great deal of student success, and particular students are going to suffer. So for 2022, this is kind of my main topic, my main theme that I'm leaning into. And the term humanized has certainly been around for a while. I think of Michelle Pacansky-Brock. I know she didn't create it, but she's the one who's really brought it into online quite a bit. And I've known Michelle probably for about 15 years now, and I'm in touch with her. And I think of people like Karen Costa, trauma-informed pedagogy, and I think of efforts related to inclusivity and universal design for learning, which has been one of my highlights of my career in working in that discipline. So a little bit about the context and why I've chosen this for today. And then as far as introductions, I'll talk about Beez Schell. Unfortunately, Beez, in her role of Dean of Academic Support, since the time we submitted this presentation proposal and thankfully were accepted, she's been pulled into 3 accreditation visits that are happening currently at 3 Colorado Mountain colleges, and she's hosting those. And so obviously was pulled away toward the end there. I've worked with Beez for over 20 years now, originally kinesiology colleagues and then faculty development colleagues. And we went from being at same campuses to different pathways, but we've stayed connected because I just think Beez has a great vision and works really well with people, and is really into equity and inclusion, and is really bought into the humanized approach that I'll talk about today as well. And then as far as my role, my background's 25 years in higher education, up through the faculty ranks, doing faculty development at the campus level, and then also at the system level for the California State University system, leading efforts related to quality assurance for online, universal design for learning, accessibility, name the topic. I've played around with it quite a bit. And as I said, this is the one that I'm so into right now that I think is so critical as we think about where we are and where we go forward from here. Let's see, I'm trying to advance. There it goes. So we'll talk about the humanized learning approach. And this is something that is useful for all students, but it's going to be absolutely critical for some. And so we'll talk about some of the data and what we see with certain student populations. And we're going to talk not just about theory, but we're going to talk about some practices. And I'm going to, again, give you some resources that you can implement, you can adopt or adapt as you see fit. And so we'll talk about those resources and strategies with your courses. And we'll talk about it across modalities. Online will be the main focus, but different shades of onlineness, if you will. And then embracing cultural diversity and individual differences. Yeah, this to me relates heavily to inclusivity, which is one of my biggest topics, but we'll stay focused a little bit more on humanized, but you'll certainly see the connection. One of the things that I've been doing, from about 2011 to 2019, I led this quality assurance effort, and I created a quality learning and teaching instrument, QLT or COLT. And we used that across our Cal State system. And I had about, the number now would be close to 10,000 instructors who've completed in-depth training on that instrument. And if you think of it, it's akin to Quality Matters, except that it has more focus on facilitation, on inclusion and delivery and humanizing and those types of things. And so when I came into my current role, which is VP for Learning Design and Inclusivity at O'Donnell Learn, I brought with me all of that work. And then with my new colleagues, we really leaned into what we call purposeful learning. And this is our framework of 8 elements. And you can see the tag words under each to try and understand some of them. Some of them are labeled pretty traditionally, but some of them we do in a different way. So intentional instruction, that's something that not a lot of people focus on, but to me, where I saw people either do well in the transition to online with COVID or not do so well, is if they were intentional, if things were chunked and sequenced and explicit for students, modularized, they had alignment in their outcomes and their activities and their assessments. If those things were in place, if that intentionality was there, then people were able to move into a new modality pretty easily. If intentionality wasn't there and they were relying on these large lectures and just sort of going over content with students in large blocks, then that was certainly a challenge for people. On the left side, you'll see elements that are more about the functional components, if you will, related to teaching and learning. That could be course design, also related to delivery, but on the right side, you're going to see more of the student-centric, the more humanizing elements there, and so the tag words. And we'll be focusing a little bit more on the right side today for sure. But we do have a balance across these 8 elements. And you're welcome to access, and I'll see if I can do a quick copy and paste into the chat. That's our purposeful learning framework there. Okay, so in thinking about your students, what are your guests like? And we're talking about welcoming students. And so these are your guests coming to your classroom. So what do these students look like? What we've seen over the last couple of years with the new data, looking at 2020 versus 2021, there isn't 2022 data yet. But if you look at the levels of anxiety, depression, and burnout, we're seeing a significant increase. We're seeing higher numbers in this area, particularly in burnout. But that's a cumulative factor. Burnout is a result of multiple things. We're seeing that for faculty, for staff, and for students. It is absolutely critical. I'm finding where even there are opportunities to work with faculty and you have incentives and resources for them, it's difficult because they just can't do more than they're already doing. On the right side, you'll see some of the behaviors that we're seeing. This is student data. But of course, you're going to see similar patterns in some of these things with faculty through COVID. So you see some things certainly that are increasing in the negative side and decreasing on the positive side. And then the last one, the fact that people are seeking mental health counsel. Now that has increased. You can say, ooh, that's bad, but in a way that's good. I mean, we can all benefit from mental health counsel. But we're seeing more of that because of the conditions you're seeing on the left and some of the behaviors on the right. So that's just a quick check-in on what the data is telling us about our students and why humanizing is so critical. And then that sense of arrival, giving students a sense of arrival. So let's talk about the syllabus briefly. This is something for the last 15 years I've just seen as an underserved resource, underdeveloped resource, underutilized resource. And I've been on this syllabus rampage or campaign different ways at different times. And I still see so much opportunity for students to make things much more welcoming and engaging. So what I wanted to do briefly, and I'll have a Padlet just a few times during the session just to get more input and engagement with you, is I want you to share a couple of things in just column 1. So putting that in chat now, and what's going to happen is you're going to go to the link in the chat. That'll take you out of Zoom and into your browser. I'm sure most of you are aware of this, but it's going to switch modalities for you. And then I'm going to go there as well. And then I'm projecting that on the screen. So now we can see on the main Zoom screen what's happening live and how people are contributing. And I'll do a check-in the chat while we see this develop. Yes, Colleen, absolutely. Thumbs up for Karen Costa. Garrett, good to see you in here. Yes, back to the CSU days. Oh my gosh. Yeah, flashback. All right, and I see people that are in there, and let's just give it a little time to populate. Now, if you aren't an instructor, then mention how you know what you know about instructors and how they go about creating their syllabi. So yeah, through looking at other syllabi, and I taught before the internet, and so it was a matter of, as a new hire, you would go in and you might talk to the department AC, or you would talk to other faculty who've taught that course, and you would get into the department files and dig and find the syllabi, kind of spread those out and find, okay, patchwork something together that represents how you're developing the course, or completely mimic what they're doing depending on your situation. Maybe it has to be the same textbook, maybe it has to be the same outcomes, and so you're going to mimic a lot of those things. But what we do is we really perpetuate a lot of the same patterns. Now I see backwards design has been mentioned. Thumbs up for that. That's the ideal. I mean, that's really about course design, but I'm focusing on the syllabus for the moment, but it is all about the outcomes. You were provided an example and then adapted yours, modeling others, modeling template. I know some places require syllabi to be in a particular format, and we'll talk about that, what the requirements are and how you can go beyond those requirements. And there are different reasons for those requirements. It could be accreditation, could be accessibility. We're going to talk about those things along the way. Quality matters. Okay, great. A workshop, good. So actually being prepared to create an effective syllabus. Lots of great contributions. Not allowed. Okay, we'll talk about, again, those barriers. So thank you. I'm going to pop us back to getting us to Zoom here. So I'm doing this all on laptop today, which is a little bit of a challenge here from my hotel, but now I've got us back. And let's talk about humanizing your syllabus. So I've seen a lot of patterns probably for about 10 or 11 years now. In fact, you'll see one example that I still love from 2011. But the reason why this is so critical is, and this is what Michelle Pacansky-Brock calls the high opportunity zone. And I've been adapting this in my own ways, is don't wait until week one where students show up for your course. Again, asynchronous, synchronous, online, in person. Again, we'll talk about online today, but that high opportunity zone is really week 0 or before. Is how can you welcome, support, or start connecting with your students? If you have your roster, why can't you send them a copy of your syllabus outside of the LMS? Ideally, they would be able to come into the LMS and see your welcome page and get oriented, and all of those things. Happens differently at different campuses depending on timing of LMS access, but you can give them a copy of a humanized syllabus ahead of time. So that's a great thing that you can do. I'll show some other things. I won't say them right now, but we'll focus on that high opportunity zone for just a little bit. Okay, so thoughts about creating a humanized syllabus. What does that mean if you're just hearing that for the first time, which is probably rare, but maybe. If you're just hearing that for the first time, what comes to mind? Or if you've seen it done or are doing it yourself, please share what that means to you and examples that you have. So I'm going to copy the link. Let me get the chat to open back up for me. And boom, let's go back into the same Padlet. If you already have it open in your browser, then it's there for you. But let me jump us back there. So let's focus on column 2, your thoughts about humanizing the syllabus or actions. What are you doing? Student-centered language. We're going to look at examples, and I'm going to actually share, briefly some research that's there about it. I'll link you to it, and I'll give you a quick synopsis. I'm not going to bore you with the research, but it's there. And I love seeing the research on the language, student-centered language. Doesn't take a lot of work, but it makes a huge difference. Focusing on clear expectations for students to understand, yeah. And giving them a sense of as to what those expectations are. We'll look at that from the course description level, but also you can think about your learning outcomes. I'm not going to focus on learning outcomes per se today. I do sessions related to developing smart learning outcomes and making sure they're measurable and all of that. Liquid syllabus, yeah, you could Google liquid syllabus and Michelle Pacansky-Brock will pop up. She has examples. She also has a free open access course that you can go through asynchronously on how to develop a liquid syllabus. Welcome in language, yeah, we'll look at examples there. Making it personal, yes. Through graphics, through language, through sharing about yourself, why you love the course, why you love your discipline. Haven't heard of yet? No problem, we're gonna get there. Open pedagogy, have students design some of the learning outcomes. Yeah, that takes a certain comfort level for faculty. Not many are at that comfort level of letting students in as far as creating outcomes or creating expectations or even deciding what products might be assessed. What are the opportunities there? Feedback, great. Thanks, Tom, for putting the Pacansky-Brock link in there. Ungrading, yeah. So people are starting to talk about ungrading, not even doing traditional grading, just giving feedback, just creating opportunities for feedback, doing more formative assessments, not being so focused on the score or on the grade. Okay, and then other statements about D. I don't want to spend too much. I need to be mindful of time as well. There's a lot of great stuff here. Thank you. And you'll have this link, you'll have ongoing access to it as well. That's another reason I use Padlet, because you can have continued access to what's being shared here. So let me go back to slideshow. Thank you for that. Great ideas shared. And let's go forward then into tone. So syllabus tone came up. I'm not going to read the slide to you, but I just want to make you aware that there's a great article on research that came up out of Oregon State that shows syllabus tone matters, and that students, through more positive tone, more welcoming or warm tone versus cold tone, students are more likely to ask for help. And that was significantly more so for underrepresented minority students. So that's, again, where it gets into equity and inclusion to me. So definitely look into that research if you're interested in going deeper. But let me just get to an example. And this is a resource I've developed, and I have the link on the slide, and I'll let you again circle back to the deck and get that resource. So this is open access, and I just have a one-page guideline showing examples on the left of what a welcoming version of a statement would be, a traditional statement versus an unwelcoming statement, a cold statement. So the bottom one is the one I like to refer to. And if you just look at the tone and the language, so much more humanizing and welcoming to read something like that. And it's about the learning journey that you, me, and we will be involved in, as opposed to students will show up or you will show up and be prepared, and that must happen type thing. So feel free to share your comments related to that in the chat and keep that sharing going. And then I'll keep looking at chat occasionally for questions. So if you have any along the way, please feel free with those, but we'll have some discussion at the end as well. And I'll just try and keep cranking along here. So there's Michelle popping up. This is one way that she has such a great personality too. She can do things that I can't do as far as just putting herself out there with that great personality. But we all work with what we have, and language is a great way to do it, whether it be in text or whether you can do it through a photo or whether you do it through a welcome video. And so this is just an example of how she props it up for students, and then how she gets them engaged. And then a way that I do it often with students, and I have faculty do that, is with Flipgrid. Just in the chat, how many of you are using Flipgrid for different purposes? It's been around for a while. It's absolutely free, which is great. It's not freemium or anything like that. It's absolutely free. And as of last summer or fall, they added a lot of great features to it. It works on many devices. It's easy to use. It's intuitive, and students love using it. So I would encourage you to check into Flipgrid if you haven't. But let's talk about that a little bit more. So what you can do is give a welcome video to your students and then have them introduce themselves. And you can prop them up with a couple things that you'd like them to say, and then give them sort of an open-ended prompt or an optional thing they might share about themselves. All right. And then I did a presentation here with an instructor who actually uses TikTok for a similar purpose. Now, I can't venture into TikTok. I just don't have that skill, and I would just be a joke if I went into TikTok, but some of you might be more open to that. Okay. And then let's think about getting students to actually take notice of your syllabus and read that syllabus. So let's jump back maybe one more time to Padlet, and let's have you think about anything that you're doing or you're seeing instructors do to get students to actually take notice of that syllabus. And then I'll get you into a couple of examples, and I'll link you to many more, but I'm not going to go over many of them because there's only so much time. And then people can pick and choose from some of those that they may want to learn from or model from. And I am tracking the accessibility discussion related to Flipgrid in the chat. Thank you. Okay, looking at chat, but also seeing what's developing here. So how can you create interest in your syllabus? Fun or playfulness? Yeah, that's not going to be for all faculty. It's certainly not going to be for the faculty that curve their grades and have an obligatory 30% fail rate for their students, regardless of what they've learned. But you'll find some faculty who will inject some fun and some personality in there. Student agency, decomplexifying screens. Yeah, maybe clarifying for the person who posted that, maybe clarify in a comment on decomplexifying screens, compelling graphics and media, and also graphics that relate to the discipline, and also think about diversity as you're putting graphics in your syllabus and also in your presentation materials. You want to make sure that you're doing full representation and that everybody sees themselves along the way. Easter eggs, yeah, and you can do that for bonus points, but be fair, I saw recently somebody had a syllabus quiz and they buried something so deep into a policy statement, I think on page 10 of their syllabus, which is already an issue, but they did it to kind of trick the students. And just don't do things like that to trick students. You can try and make it fun using humor, nerd out on your subject matter. That, to me, that means your passion. Students pick up on your passion. Non-graded quiz, bring in candy, lots of tricks that you can do. Great templates and local presentations. I'll scan down, keep us going on time. Awesome. Yeah, ask students for feedback. How might you improve your syllabus? You can actually have a graph, and I've taught people how to show a flow chart of your learning outcomes, and then you can actually use Lucidchart or something not quite as advanced to then expand each of those learning outcomes to show what the activities and content might be, and then what the assessments are. And so then they see this full developed picture of what the course is and how it's all connected from the learning outcomes to the content, the activities, and the assessments, and how all of that aligns in a visual picture. If you use something like Inspiration, it'll do it in visual and text. So you have dual modalities and you have accessibility built in. So just an aside on that, I like that somebody mentioned that. Okay, let me jump back again. And let's look at a few quick humanizing examples. This is one that I like that is a US history example, obviously. And this is where she has used more of a newsletter template. In fact, it comes from Microsoft Word. We'll talk about accessibility more in a second. So I like this one because she was able to copy and paste elements of her traditional, let's say, Word syllabus template that you might have required for university. Put that on file, that's your official. The department can have that, accreditation could look at that. But for your students, copy and paste those elements into something like a newsletter template in Word. So again, you can have both purposes or both versions available, and that can cover accessibility as well. So, but look at the language you will learn about, and there's this thing about the journey and how they'll critically analyze, and by the way, it fulfills Constitution's requirement for the institution and all of those things. So that's just one page of a snapshot from that syllabus. I like this one a lot as well, and this one has a nice story because this is what you traditionally see, your students would see. It's like, here comes another syllabus at me. Why would I stop? Here's another CVS I'm driving by, and it's the same old thing. But this instructor in marketing got smart, and this is back in 2011, and realized, I'm in marketing, what the heck am I doing? And she created this infographic syllabus. And she used, I think, PictoChart at the time, but I'll recommend something else in a moment. And so again, she took the elements of a Word syllabus, put them into a template, and within minutes, you can have these produced to where you can then post that for your students. And she actually circulated that ahead of time to students, and it became a marketing tool for her course, and students started flocking toward this course. And that started making the other instructors and the whole department think about, okay, what's our approach to getting students into these courses within our major, or maybe even attracting non-majors into our discipline. So they actually started working together to doing things like this. So that was a good approach. Let me pull chat back up again. Canva, yeah, I'm going to talk about Canva in just a second. Thank you. Here are some other examples. I won't go into all of them, but they're there for you, and some do a pre and post like you just saw. So Canva is great, and Canva was doing free.edu accounts. They still are for K through 12, but I don't think they're doing it for higher education currently, but they have hundreds of free templates available, so you can easily adopt your content into one of their templates. So that's just canva.com. If somebody wants to share that. And then let's see, let's address accessibility because I do see it coming up again. Again, when I work with instructors, I say, okay, keep working within Word, the syllabus you've been working with all along. Keep going in Word. That's what your department wants. There's an accessibility template for Word syllabi. Keep doing that. And accreditation loves that. All those things. You've got that standard format that checks that box. And then copy and paste and create this visual engaging syllabus, but post both for your students. Feature one, but have both available. And then you're going to have the screen reader accessible version for students or those that prefer text. And then you're going to have the visual version for engaging students. So hopefully that's addressed. I tell instructors to just keep updating their text one and then make enhancements to their visual one as they go, and it shouldn't be that much work. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about a web-based syllabus. That's a great way to go as well. And I see Stacy has a question. I'm sorry, I'm just seeing your hand up. Is there something, Stacy, you want to come on quickly, microphone, and I'll do a time check here?
I'm sorry, I was just asking about the screen reader and the visual one.
Okay. Yeah, hopefully that covered it. It is an issue if you were to only offer that. Yeah, absolutely. Ideally, you would have something that's fully tagged alt text and screen readable that would be the visual, and you're offering one, but that's hard to do. So I think giving all students a choice. Yeah, and the Canva tool in developing has the inaccessibility components. Yeah. So from the development, from the instructor side, there may be some issues. So that may not be a tool for everybody. Thank you. Okay, some of you have heard the liquid syllabus approach as came up earlier. And so I'll just, again, give reference to Michelle Pacansky-Brock. And I know she's working with a lot of her faculty in California in the community college, CSU system, and the UC system, who are working in her project that she has right now and developing these liquid syllabi and humanized courses in STEM. So she has a lot of great models. So I would encourage you, if you want to look deeper, to go into that site. And she uses Google Sites for that. You may or may not choose to go that route. You may or may not be wanting to work in another, yet another platform. If you're not using Google Drive, you want to stay in your LMS, that's fine, and post in there. Nothing wrong with that. What's nice about the liquid syllabus is it has more of that portability and mobile access to it. Okay, some cautions with the visual syllabus. So, your visuals should make some connection within context. They shouldn't just be trivial. Make sure you update your text-based format. So accessibility we talked about. Your department may require a certain format, but again, you can check that box by keeping the word-based version and then just do your thing with your academic freedom within your course. Okay, other methods people have been using to create visually enhanced syllabi. See, latex project, I'll have to check into that. Yeah. I've been hearing a little bit about that, what people have been doing.
I use latex for mine because it's a lot easier to create like hyperlinks and references, and then you can create like flowcharts and images and all sorts of stuff, upload graphics, and it's just easier to like align things a little bit.
Okay. Thanks, Stacy. So I would encourage people, and I'm jotting it down here just in case I don't get the chat at the end, to check out latexproject.org. Love it. Overleaf.com. Thank you. Love the sharing that's happening here. Okay, cool. And feel free to share any other ideas, but let me give us a kind of a bump forward time-wise. We're at 1/2 We've got 20 more minutes, and I want to leave it open for any discussion at the end. So latex for engineering and math. So great, and maybe engaging STEM faculty. That could be a strategy. Okay, so Canva, you have tons of those templates that I mentioned that are available, hundreds of them as free templates. So canva.com, just want to make sure you have the URL. Pictochart, I'm fading away from. Canva has definitely jumped to the forefront. It became very popular during COVID times for different reasons. So I think they have just really advanced what they're doing, more so than Pictochart, but you can certainly look at both. Okay, we talked about the word templates. The course description really is where I wanted to focus here. Again, you can see where it's first person, it's humanized, it's warm and welcoming. And I really wanted to focus on the description as far as the course journey. And so we'll talk a little bit about course descriptions and how those have meaning. So this is another area that I think is just so underdeveloped. So look at the title of this course, Biology 103, Sex, Death, and Evolution. To me, this should be just a really exciting, like Game of Thrones ride or something, this course. But here comes the description students are given. And this is just catalog copy. And these types of descriptions are there because they just have the purpose of distinguishing one course from another, Bio 103 from Bio 104, whatever it is. And that's their only purpose. They don't really describe what the course is about or what students are going to do, what they're going to get out of it. So it's really a missed opportunity. And I find that faculty will copy and paste that into their syllabus. Again, the syllabus you have some ownership over as far as what you can put in. The catalog can always stand for the required and the official. So here's one for the science of play that I think is a great model for getting students excited. So if you just want to give that a glance yourself. And some of the language, you will explore the connections between. And so it's, again, first person. It does look like a great class. And actually for my master's, I did sociology and psychology of sport, and we did the psychology of play, and it was one of my favorite classes. There's so much that can be learned in that realm. Case studies, and just the discussion, analysis, and workshop. So, that is a course you're going to be much more excited to take and take notice of than this catalog description course, even though the title of either of those could be, very intriguing. Yeah, tell us, Stacy, tell us more. Mario effect, can you?
Yeah, it's just when you're playing a video game and you fail to beat the boss, or you fail to like jump over whatever you're supposed to jump over, what do? You go and you try again, and you don't feel demotivated, you feel extra motivated, like I can do this, I can beat this. So why is it different when you're doing homework? Why do you, like math students, feel if they do one problem, they get stuck and then they quit? Like, what's the difference mentally in that kind of, I face an obstacle and want to try again, or I face an obstacle and I quit?
Yeah.
Type of mentality. And so it was just kind of interesting on like changing, like basically gamifying your practice assignments to make it more likely that they would want to overcome the obstacle.
Definitely. If you want to do gamifying or game-based learning, or just really leaning much more toward formative assessment opportunities where you've got that frequent and timely feedback loop, whatever you can do to make it about the learning, not about the grading, and that it's more process and learning oriented, and that students aren't going to be afraid to make a mistake and they're not going to feel stuck. They're going to know that that's just part of learning, that you're going to learn through making mistakes, and then you're going to backtrack and you're going to figure out what went wrong. And that's a great learning opportunity. It's not a failure. So yeah, I think there are a lot of great things about that. Okay. Anything I've missed? Others, anything else you're doing to create interest or getting students to actually read the syllabus? I heard syllabus quiz come up earlier, and I gave a little bit of input on what I do related to that, and a little bit on, not trying to trick students, but to really make it an exercise where they can demonstrate that they've learned, and you can put in some fun and give some reward for it, but not trying to trick them for, making them feel stupid that they didn't find that one hidden word that was in the 10th policy. Scavenger hunt. Yeah. So egg hunt, I've heard egg hunt, scavenger hunt, quiz, however you want to frame it. And then also maybe give an open-ended question in there that asks them for feedback on the syllabus. And so I heard that come up earlier. Love it. I'll push the slides, but I will keep an eye on chat continually here. So let's talk about setting the stage for inclusivity a little bit. So I mentioned that to me, this is connected to inclusivity. That's a big part of it as well. So here's an example of an inclusivity statement, and I didn't put it up there for today, but sometimes, sometimes what I'll do is I'll put up what you see as a traditional diversity statement from a campus. And sometimes that'll get attached in a syllabus or put into a syllabus. Sometimes it's recommended, sometimes it's required. I haven't seen it required that often, but I always work with faculty and encourage them to put in an inclusivity statement, and I'll let you, browse this one. Sometimes instructors might just do a disability or accommodation statement that is really just 508, section 508 oriented, and it refers people to disability support services. But what I like to do is put them all together, and this is an inclusivity statement. And then sometimes I might have another statement below it that's, by the way, if you are registered with the Office of Disability Support Services and have an accommodations request, please let me know and we'll work together, that type of thing. But this is an example of an inclusivity statement that I encourage instructors to consider and adopt or adapt. So I'm not sure what people have come up with for their own inclusivity statements to really, have that come from you as a statement, as opposed to, the campus diversity statement, which is usually, mission level, mission oriented, which is important. But I think there's so much more you can do to bring that into the classroom and humanize it and actually bring it into teaching and learning. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go next step on this. Are any of you including a land acknowledgement? In your syllabus and your presentations? Great. And then I'm not sure how some of you, maybe you adapted the one from your institution, because if you're there on site, then it's going to be the same. But if you're teaching remotely, then that might be something that you develop on your own. And so I've actually developed a handout on how to do that. And I can put that handout in the chat, but again, you can get in. Oops, meant to control click on that. And this is something that I often include because I have ancestors who were pushed onto the reservation in Oklahoma. And so this has some resonance with me and with my background, and certainly related to what others have experienced. So there's a great resource here at the bottom, the Native Land, the Territory Acknowledgement site, that'll take you through this journey, and you can learn more about where you are. And then you can use some of the framing language that I've offered, and some examples I've offered, and then recommendations that they've given. And I've kind of bundled that in together into a simple how-to. Oh, thank you for that. Okay, something about the viewing settings. My apologies. I will do that right away. I thought that was already open access. I apologize. I promise I will get that made available. So do come back to the same link. I'll change the settings. Sorry about that. Anything else about land acknowledgement that people are doing? For Kaya, Garrett, have you, and you don't need to come on mic, you can if you want to, but what helped you what inspired you or helped you, whatever you want to share to develop that? Or again, maybe you adopted from. Pretty common in Alaska, absolutely. And I'm based in Olympia, Washington, very common as well. It's College Core Values, great. The one from the university, yeah. So for some of you, it's easy to adopt, again, if you're at your location with your institution. Awesome. Okay. In the theme of welcoming students, let's talk about activating your Ring camera. So how are you getting to know who your students are? What do you all do to get to know your students, to know about them? I won't say too much more because I don't want to give it away where I'm going next, but how do you get to know your students early? Do you have a formal process? I don't want formal to sound like it's rigid, but formal, in that you have something that you have planned. Talk to them, absolutely. Discussion board, okay, good. Meet with them one-on-one. Yeah, I know faculty are doing like 15-minute Zooms with students, like a get to know, and it's going to depend on your course size for sure. Student survey, great. Name game, oh, I like that. Is there a particular tool, Stacy, you use for name game? And then Garrett, icebreakers are great. Yeah, test your icebreakers out. There are good ones, there are bad ones.
The one where you ask them to tell something about themselves and you have to repeat everybody's in a snake pattern.
Okay. Yeah, tricky, but it gets people to pay attention to others.
Yes, and then it learns names really fast.
Awesome, love it. Yeah, with icebreakers, those can be great, and you can do those in different ways. I know for a few years, 2 truths and a lie was popular, but it kind of got overdone. And I'll see if I can say this correctly, but I saw one response to two truths and a lie was hate it, love it. That was the response. So think about that for a second. So yeah, kind of mix up your icebreakers a little bit from time to time, get feedback from students, or just kind of do a pulse check. Love this. They write their learning outcomes and share. Ooh, yeah, individual learning outcomes. Great. What are their goals? I think I'm going to do a little change to what I'm showing you next based on that. I am from poem. Love that as well. Post a discussion board, respond. Okay. Oh, looking for things in common and things that are different. Depends on the modality. Yeah, for sure. Love all those ideas. And I'll show you what, now this one isn't as fun, but it's productive, it's functional, is I have this learner connectedness survey that I developed. And what I did was I looked at research on doing this and different models that are out there and what we were involved in for the last couple of years, and created this learner connectedness survey. And I'll put the link into the chat and you can test it for me. I think that's available as open access. And what it'll actually do is that link will elicit a copy. And so you'll click copy, and then you can get your own copy of that Google form on your drive, and you own it. You can change it, modify it, rebrand it, edit items, delete items, whatever it is. And you would also own the sheet that would be associated with it once you would have students complete it. It's not going to be attached to me going forward whatsoever, because that's certainly not something you want or I want or your students. So a little bit about this. So this has 5 sections to it. And it asks students to talk about their name and identity and pronouns, whatever they want to share. Now you can make it so you require the survey, but you don't require all items within the survey. You can think about that. You can have a small set of points attached to it, but what you'll get is you'll get a sheet of some things that are more quantitative that you can scan quickly, and other things that are more qualitative about students, or more descriptive. And so they've given a little bit about their identity. They can talk about themselves as a learner. What do they feel their strengths are, their preferences are as a learner, where they feel they have any weaknesses or where they don't do as well and where they'd like to improve. So you can get to know that a little bit. What are their situational factors? Particularly again, during COVID, people were crammed into tight spaces together, bandwidth issues, technology or device issues, their working, their caregiving. What are the types of things that they're dealing with? Again, this is information that just goes to you as the instructor, and it's all up to them as far as what they want to share. If they have commutes, if that relates to their situation at your institution in your course. So you can get a sense about your students' lives and what they want to share with you. So that's something I'll put into the chat. And if anybody tests it, you can give me a thumbs up or thumbs down on that copy access link working. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. And so let's close here going into discussion. I'm looking, we have just a couple minutes left here. Yes, about 5 minutes. I think of one last time into Padlet. Trying to get a copy of the link one more time here on that. So that's in chat in case you still don't have it open in your browser. And let's just do a final check-in. So let me scroll over here, is call to action. So based on either what I've shared as examples, tips and techniques, or what you've heard from your colleagues here, what might be a next step for you to humanize your course, or in working with others to help them humanize their course, from pre-delivery syllabus or welcomes on through the course and interactions that they do with their students? Okay, so plenty of people gathered in the Padlet. Let me do a refresh and see what we get here. Okay, so making an alternate syllabus, you can call it visually enhanced, you can call it humanized, whatever you want to call it, but yeah, making that alternate version that's going to be more user-friendly. Taking a look at the language, yeah. It matters, it really does matter. It's getting toward the same end as far as communication, but does it in a much more effective way. Great, humanizing language, checking in with students. Yeah, feedback more often. That's so critical. Really going more and more toward formative assessments and making sure it's timely feedback. has to be timely because that's the most critical factor, frequent and timely. And then think about, how you can offer opportunities for students to give each other feedback through their activities, through any peer reviews that are done. That's also another example. Doesn't always have to be all you. Okay, so more on infographic or map-like syllabus. Yeah, linking content to the reality of their lives. And other sessions, I talk about authentic assessment, how important that is for students. And there's great data on how it's particularly important for underrepresented minority students who can then see themselves moving forward in the program and in the discipline or the field. Students as guests. Yeah, we had fun with that one in the webinar where we did this welcome mat, as you saw, in the ring and all these things. Yeah, email the syllabus prior. Yeah, give students warning. I have daughters in college and I'm still just baffled by instructors who, before the first day of class, have still not decided on their textbooks or shared the syllabus or anything with students. It's so yeah, as a parent, it's frustrating. As a student, frustrating. Awesome. I'm gonna leave Padlet up. Actually, I should probably go to the closing slide, and then I'll put the link to the slide so I don't forget. I'm sharing the wrong. Okay. Let me go back to slideshow. My apologies. I have another presentation starting in 10 minutes. That's why I have the other thing open in the background. So let's move on to the next slide. So you have just a summary of takeaway resources. You have the slides with examples, links, and resources. Those are all at open access Creative Commons license. Please share alike as you make any modifications. It's being recorded, and if you want to, you can pull the chat transcript. And then you have access to the Padlet ongoing with any of the ideas that you and others shared. And then the liquid syllabus examples, the learner connectedness survey, and the purposeful learning framework that I linked earlier on. I need to open up access to the land acknowledgement. I'll do that in just a little while. And the last thing I want to do is go ahead and make sure that you do have the link to the slides. So let me back out to edit mode and grab that and put it into chat right now. And feel free to test, but I did test earlier and I believe that was all set to be anyone can view. Oh, good question, Sharon. I'm sorry, my apologies. I should have mentioned with the learner connectedness survey, I like to have that done within the first week. The earlier, the better. You can do it before course orientation. The one reason you might do it after you've done a course orientation is you might have questions on there asking them about their goals in the course. So that's going to help inform their responses. But in this learner connectedness survey, as I have it, I don't have that type of question, but that would be a good thing you could do. And in other sessions, I have this early term feedback survey that I offer to people because I think, if you're looking at 15-week term, you don't want to wait till halfway to check in with students as to how it's going in a survey. It's kind of late. Some of them might already be too far down and can't pull themselves back up. So I like to do that at about 3 weeks, but that's not part of this presentation anyway. I see we're at time. See, Jessica, you still on? You want to?
Yeah, I'm on. I was going to ask if you've already shared the slide link, can you drop that into chat? And if you're comfortable, I can put it in our Discord as well for people who didn't get to attend. We have a channel that is a SlideShare channel for people who had conflicting presentations.
Great, and I'm seeing people are moving on, and I see their thanks. Yeah, Jessica, it's in there at 11:48. It's in the chat.
Oh, okay, must have missed it. There's always just so much stuff coming through.
Oh yeah. Thank you,
I'll go
Jacqueline.
ahead.
Garrett.